We have started with the global level, and we are reaching now to a regional level, for which purpose I would like to welcome Sjur Bergan. He's the head of the Department of Education of Council of Europe and in charge of Council of Europe projects on competencies for a democratic culture and European qualifications passport for refugees. He's one of the most experienced educationalists in Europe and has focused on issues like public responsibility for higher education, academic freedom and institutional autonomy. And he's here with us. So, Sjur, you have the floor.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, it is a great joy as well as an honor to be able to speak at this conference marking the 100th anniversary of the World University Service. And it's a particular pleasure to be at the live conference after a year and a half. I will not claim to have known the WUS since its very beginning, but I have known it since the 1990s, when WUS, and in particular through Wolfgang Benedek, was among the Council of Europe's most important partners in Southeast Europe. What we then done was closely linked to what this conference is about. How can we ensure the right to education, and how can we make sure that that education is of quality? No word actually pops up more frequently in public education debate than precisely quality. We get the impression that quality is predefined, it's out there somewhere, and all we have to do is achieve it. Reality, of course, is a bit more complicated. Quality is a concept whose use is not only frequent, but also vague. If we want to assess whether we do something well or not, it probably helps if we know what we're trying to achieve in the first place. We cannot judge the quality of a house by using the criteria for the quality of a car. Therefore, in 2012, the Council of Europe developed a recommendation on ensuring quality education. In our understanding, the quality of education cannot be divorced from its social dimension, to use the terminology of the European higher education area. One can sometimes get the impression that the more exclusive a university is, the higher its quality. But quality education must be inclusive, not exclusive. No education system can be of high quality if it leaves many of its students by the wayside. No education system can be of high quality unless it offers all its prospective students opportunities commensurate with their abilities, their potential, and their aspirations. And many students have potentials that are quite considerably higher than their aspirations. Quality education cannot be a human right unless there is fair and equal access to it. And it is perhaps a comment on the value of university rankings that none seems to measure real educational quality. We are living through a health crisis that seriously challenges the notion of inclusive quality education. Make no mistake, the response to the COVID crisis by students, staff, education institutions, and public authorities was for the most part impressive by any standard. Education was moved online quickly, and classes were interrupted, but not discontinued. The emergency response was overwhelming, but it was an emergency response. Classes cannot stay online forever. The quality university of the future will combine different modes of teaching and learning, including both face-to-face and online. The COVID crisis raises the broader question of how we can ensure the right to education in terms of crisis. In the course this summer and early fall last year, the Council of Europe developed a roadmap for action, as well as a political declaration on the education response to COVID, and the latter was actually endorsed by ministers of education of the 50 states party to the European Cultural Convention. Obviously, at an online conference, what would you expect? Unsurprisingly, the ministers reaffirmed their intention to ensure the right to education also in times of crisis, but more specifically, they reasserted that our education systems and institutions must and will fulfill all major purposes of education, which we see as preparation for sustainable employment. That's what everybody talks about. Preparation for life as active citizens in democratic societies. That's what we talk about. Personal development, which is perhaps the original purpose of education, and the development and maintenance of a broad and advanced knowledge base. Ministers also reaffirmed that public authorities have the responsibility for ensuring the quality of all education, regardless of whether it is public or private, and not least that we cannot allow a public health crisis to develop into a crisis of democracy. Now, in the time allotted, allow me to focus on two more specific issues. Getting your qualifications recognized has been made considerably less difficult through the Lisbon Recognition Convention developed by the Council of Europe and UNESCO and now ratified by 54 countries. But that is true as long as you can document your qualifications. But if you have to flee your home, your diploma may not be the first thing that you put in your bag, if you can take anything at all. Therefore, the Council of Europe has developed the European Qualifications Passport for Refugees, which has a double purpose: devising a sound method of assessing refugees' qualifications, even when they cannot be fully documented, and describing these qualifications in such a way that the assessment can be accepted if and when refugees move from one host country to another. We're carrying out this project in cooperation with the UNHCR and now with 12 countries, including Canada and 11 from Europe. Out of the 708 candidates we have interviewed so far, 594 have received the EQPR. Many have obtained a job or a place of study on the basis of the EQPR. For example, the first recipient, a Syrian physiotherapist, is now working in a related field in Norway, and more than 50 EQPR holders have obtained places of study in Italian universities. If refugees are condemned to inactivity, they will be frustrated, and they will be demotivated, and they will eventually lose the qualifications they had. If, on the other hand, refugees are given the opportunity to use and develop their qualifications, they will be motivated, they will help their host countries, and they will be well placed to rebuild their home countries. As Europe now prepares to receive refugees from Afghanistan, it is important that we have this instrument that can make the difference between a vicious and a virtuous circle. The second issue is directly linked to democracy and human rights, and we'll explore it in one of the working groups. Academic freedom and institutional autonomy are essential to the quality of higher education. They're also essential conditions of democracy. Both democracy and the quality of education are threatened in Europe today, not only in Belarus, even if the violations of basic democratic and academic rights are particularly flagrant there. Vienna now hosts an institution that had to move here from a neighboring country because of new legislation combined with government efforts to silence its critical voice. as we commemorate the 30th anniversary of the construction of the 60th anniversary of the construction of the Berlin Wall, we need to remind ourselves that the freedom and democracy we thought we had won when the wall was demolished cannot be taken for granted. The conference marking the 100th anniversary of the World University Service provides us with an opportunity to explore many of the ways in which we can ensure the human right to quality education, whether under conditions we may naively have considered normal or under emergency conditions. We will need political courage, and we will above all need education. As the Chilean sociologist Eugenio Tironi said, if we want to answer the question, what kind of education do we need? We first need to answer a different question. What kind of society do we want? May our children and grandchildren live in societies where they will enjoy quality education as a human right. That requires that we not take it for granted. Happy anniversary, Ruth. Your work is as important today as it was in the immediate aftermath of World War I and at the time of the unfairly named Spanish flu, 51 years ago. Som geburtsdag, viel Glück.
Thank you, Sjur, very much for giving us these insights, particularly also the relevance of quality education for human rights and democracy framework in a time when we face increasing authoritarian trends. This has gained in importance, but also the issue of the recognition of qualifications, which is making the life of many migrants difficult in practice, because it takes too long, is too cumbersome, and hopefully your work will contribute to making this easier.